Hey YouTube, in this video I'm going to be talking about the benefits of resistance bands because I believe there's many. But I'll be focusing on the main ones. So first off would be the fact that it's easy to train at home, because when you are a sprinter you have to spend all this different money on various different things. If you actually calculate it, go up to more than probably 1,000 or quite close to it. But it makes it easy for you to just train on the things that you normally wouldn't train. Because for example, you're going to go gym, you're going to go sprinting, work on the major muscle groups, but then you're going to be fatigued, spent, and then you're not going to do anything afterwards. Or you're going to do whatever you're going to do, but you're not going to focus on other stuff you should have been doing. By using resistance bands, you're going to be able to train at home really easily. For example, the thumbnail of this video is literally me with two resistance, well, not me in the video, but two resistance bands stuck to banister, so that I could use them for my core and for my hip flexors. So I don't have to worry about setting up or anything, because I can just leave them there. Something you can't do in the gym, because you can only be in the gym for so long. You have to get everything ready and all of that stuff. If I want to go and work out, I can go and straight go do it. And what makes it even better is resistance bands can be streamlined to focus on your major weaknesses. And for me, I think my major weaknesses, maybe not my core. I haven't really seen the problem ever occur in my core, but a strong core has never hurt anybody. But my hip flexors, so every single time I go up the stairs, I see the bands, I see the two, I see the top one, I'm like, okay, that's core. So the bottom one, that's my hip flexors. And it's constantly in my mind. So I'm like, oh, okay, maybe when I go up next time, or before I'm going back downstairs, I can just go rep out some reps and go on my day. Something I wouldn't be able to do in the gym, because I can only be there for so long before I have to leave. In the fitness industry, that's called greasing the groove. Where if you ever want to get the increased amount of reps, increase your strength, and build some hypertrophy in a specific muscle, or mainly just in a specific movement, like for example pull-ups, you grease the groove. So you get a pull-up bar, and as the day goes by, the second you see that pull-up bar, you just start doing pull-ups. It's as simple as that, but it's just, instead it's done for sprinting. And what's really great with this is that resistance bands, you can use them in more than just one direction. For example, you can use them to try and, if you're supposed to get more than one resistance band, you're supposed to get them with varying weights. You can use them to recover, so you can use them whilst you're on recovery days. You can use them on really intense days, and you can also use them to try and be explosive and various other things. So resistance bands are just very useful. Other than that, when it comes to injury rehab and prehab, resistance bands, generally they're the go-tos. There's a few other exercises, but they're all body weight, so you could be able to do them at any time anyway. But the ones that aren't, that use resistance bands, because you want to try, once you've like gotten the body weight stuff down and dusted, you've done the rehab. But I say, like, once you've got rehab done, you always want to do prehab, because rehab, if you do it wrong, all that's going to end up happening is you're just going to build up whatever you broke down to the same degree it was before it broke. But you also want to strengthen that back up, because that's one of your weaknesses, and you're only as strong as your weaknesses. So you want to make sure that you officially attack those weaknesses until they're one of your strengths. And having resistance bands would allow you to do these exercises that require equipment, but you don't have the equipment because you don't have resistance bands, whenever you want, because you basically got the entire day other than sleep, or whenever you're actually doing something to go do the resistance bands. Because if you're not outside, you're most likely at home. And if you're at home for hours, these are hours where you could have been training, because there's things you could be doing every single day as a sprinter that, while they won't give you a crazy return, and especially not a crazy return straight away, they can still give you a crazy return as the season progresses. Because imagine if your weakness is also hip flexors, and you did what I did, and 365 days in the entire year, you just trained your hip flexors. Imagine how different you would be from the 1st of September, let's use last year, 2022, to the 31st of August, 2021. The difference, I mean, I know that's 364 days, but the difference would be, actually maybe it is 365 days, it's a leap year, but that's besides the point. The difference is, the point is, the difference between you would be so drastic. And yeah, you'd have been doing your other work anyway, so you would have improved, but you can't guarantee the rate of return that you got would have been purely because of the stuff he was doing, and not because of the stuff he was doing as well as resistance bands, where he was actively working on the problems you have every single day, because you could visually see a resistance band which you have seen and trained your brain to think of the weakness, and you're like, oh, okay, I should probably be doing that, so you go and do that. And all of this I was talked about is just proof that resistance bands could replace the gym if you didn't have the money. Let's say you had £100, you could buy a gym membership with that money, or you could spend £30 or 40 or maybe 50. I don't actually remember how much resistance bands costed, but usually about 40, and buy like 5, 6, as many resistance bands as you can. If you can get really thick resistance bands, do it. Because my resistance band is about 40, I think it's about 40 kg or 80 kg, my heaviest one. I don't want a heavy one, but I can't find any. So the heavier you can get resistance bands, better. So if you could spend £100 on like 20, 30 resistance bands, and they just go from really light to really thick and strong, go do that. And you wouldn't have to go to the gym, because think about this, it can replace the gym. You can do upper body, you can do lower body, you can work on your weaknesses, because some of the stuff you can do with resistance bands you can't do in the gym. You need to buy attachments for those, like work on your hip flexors. You can work on your hip flexors in certain ranges of motion, but usually is dependent, the how well you can work on your hip flexors is dependent upon your form and the attachments the gym already has, because you can only work in the range of motion of the attachments that the gym has. Otherwise it's all for nothing essentially. Whilst resistance bands you can do wherever you want, whenever you want, because they're always there. I'm not saying just do resistance bands, don't go to the gym, but I am saying you can use resistance bands if you couldn't afford to go to the gym for one season, for example, and you can obviously use them to complement each other. Other than that, when you're actually training, you're on track, drills, working with resistance bands on drills is going to strengthen you up. It's weird because some of the things you see doesn't make sense how this is strengthening you, but once you go and do it, you understand. Resistance bands will allow you to strengthen your body and be able to focus on these specific ranges of motion that you're not able to get into, because when you do them normally, it's just your body and there's no resistance pulling you back. So it's like, oh, okay, I can just move like normal. But when you have a resistance band, this is extra resistance pulling you back, which can hinder, well, not so much hinder your form, but show you problems in your form that you can actually work and fix. So having resistance bands is very important. We have that video out on why packed them in my bag, and this is why I packed them in my bag, because they were useful for resisted drills as well as resisted sprints. Obviously these are acceleration drills, well, not acceleration drills, just accelerations for a short period of time. Doing this is essentially like going to the gym and doing squats, but it's more transferable, because as you go out through your entire season, you go from doing really heavy stuff to doing really light and explosive stuff. But once you've gone all that light and explosive stuff done, it's essentially going to feel like nothing. You need to do something that's going to help cross over all of that work. And plyometrics is one, but sprinting is another. But what happens once you've basically crossed it over, all of it, but you cross over that power to speed, but you still want to get some extra improvements, you do resistance sprints. Do resistance sprints in your off season, you can do them in your pre-season, you can do them whilst you're in the season, and you just get stronger and you'll be able to get faster, because the ground contact times for them are generally low, and you can play around with them, because all you need is a resistance band, a thick enough resistance band, and someone else. And that someone else will be the person that determines roughly the amount of weight you're going to be feeling with every single sprint. You can have them follow you really well, or you can have them barely follow you and you feel a lot of weight. And you can play around with that throughout your entire season, because a lot of people tend to think, okay, well, if I want to be able to sprint fast, I'm going to need to get a sled, and then I'm also going to need to buy some weights. Then I need to make sure these weights are like half my body weight at least, so I can do a bunch of different things, maybe even my entire body weight. You go, you calculate, and you look, it's like something dumb like 200 pounds, mainly just for the weights themselves. When people forget that before sprinters ever even went into the gym, the way they trained was with resistance bands. This is exactly what they did. Maybe they did go into the gym for upper body, maybe, and maybe their lower body, but before then, like I'm talking maybe 50 years ago, around then, before that, there was this whole hype of going into the gym to get faster, which I'm not saying isn't useful. It is. People use resistance bands to get faster because the benefits that you could get with someone just amazing. And whilst after a while, the benefits will cap out. Generally, the benefits will start to cap out by the time you're already elite. And if they're capping out before you are, then most likely you've neglected a certain exercise or exercises that you should have been doing to progress. For example, if you're using resistance bands for squats, yeah, obviously that's going to cap out quite quickly. But if you're using them for hip flexors, most likely only once you become an elite sprinter will you ever have to face the problem of a really, like, let's say the heaviest resistance band you can buy right now is really, really taxing on your body. But the only time you ever have to worry about that being feeling extremely like the extremely light, like the first resistance band, the lightest resistance band you have, would be years from now. So if it happens in a year, then you know that you've definitely done something wrong because you haven't been working on strengthening the right muscles. Because I highly doubt there's anyone in this world who starts sprinting or is even years into sprinting unless they're already sub 11, well into sub 11, like I'd say 10.6 and below, who can't use resistance band and struggle in a certain exercise. Even if you are 10.6 and below, you can still use resistance band and struggle and still get results from resistance bands because you can still do them in an explosive manner to try and help yourself get faster. And as long as you use them, you could literally just replace the gym. Not saying you should, but the fact that you can should just go to show how important they are, because you can only be in a gym for a few hours every day, but you can be at home every hour of the day if you so please. For example, if you're not training on Saturday and Sunday and you don't go anywhere, you have resistance bands so you can still train and you can do recovery, because you're not really supposed to do absolutely nothing on your rest days, your recovery days. You're supposed to still do some level of work, but it's not supposed to be as taxing as your actual training days. So now you actually have something you can do which will help you recover faster, improve faster, and just get stronger all around and improve quicker throughout your entire season, and you don't even have to leave your house to do it. If you like my content, don't forget to like and share it around. Comment any questions you might have, I'll always respond. I post at 1 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time every 2 days. So if you don't know what time that is, then just make sure you subscribe and you hit the bell and you'll be notified every single time I post. You don't have to keep checking. Other than that, I also have a Patreon where I upload a blog post related to sprint training, gym training, and plyometrics. And I also, if you send them in, I can do sprint mechanic analysis for you and give them back to you, as well as doing one-on-one coaching towards sprint technique and helping to develop you in the gym and plyometrics. I hope to see you in my next video.